In the dark shadows, in the white cold, fearlessly we search for knowledge new and old. We drink the strong spirits and read the ancient tomes. The order of the Abracast. We are the brave and the bold.
On Child and Marriage, I have a question for you alone, my brother, like a sounding lead. I cast this question onto your soul that I might know how deep it is. You are young and wish for a child and marriage. But I ask you, are you a man entitled to wish for a child? Are you the victorious one, the self-conqueror, the commander of your senses, and the master of your virtues? This I ask you. Or is it the animal and the need that speak out of your wish or loneliness or lack of peace with yourself? Let your victory and your freedom long for a child. You shall build living monuments to your victory and to your liberation. You shall build over and beyond yourself, but first you must be built yourself, perpendicular in body and soul. You shall not only reproduce yourself, but produce something higher. May the garden of marriage help you in that. You shall create a higher body, a first movement, a self-propelled wheel, and you shall create a creator. Marriage, thus I name the will of two to create one. That is more than those who created it. Reverence for each other, as for those willing with such a will, is what I name marriage. Let this be the meaning and the truth of your marriage. But that which the all too many, the superfluous, call marriage, alas, what shall I name that? Alas, this poverty of the soul in pair. Alas, the fifth of the soul in pair. Alas, this wretched contentment in pair. Marriage, they call this, and they say that their marriage was made in heaven. Well, I do not like it. It's pretty straightforward. This heaven of the superfluous. No, I do not like them, these animals entangled in the heavenly net, and let the God who limps near to bless what he never joined keep his distance from me. Do not laugh at such marriages. What child would not have cause to weep over its parents? Worthy I deem this man, and ripe for the senses of the earth. But when I saw his wife, the earth seemed to me a house for the senseless. Indeed, I wished that the earth might tremble in convulsions when a saint meet with a goose. It's questionable. This one went out like a hero in quest of truths, and eventually he conquered a little dressed up lie. His marriage, he calls it. This one was reserved and chose choosily. But all at once he spoiled his company forever. His marriage, he calls it. Then that one sought a maid with the virtues of an angel. But all at once he became the maid of a woman. And now he must turn himself into an angel. Careful I have found all buyers now, and all of them have cunning eyes. But even the most cunning still buys his wife in a poke. Many brief follies, that is what you call love, and your marriage concludes with brief follies as a long stupidity. Your love of woman and woman's love of man, oh, that it were compassion for suffering and shrouded gods, but for the most part two beasts find each other. But even your best love is merely an ecstatic parable, a painful ardor. It is a torch that should light up higher paths for you. Over and beyond yourselves you shall love one day, thus learn first love, and for that you had to drain the bitter cup of your love, and bitterness lies in the cup that even the best love, thus it arouses longing for the overman. Thus it arouses your thirst, creator thirst for the creator, an arrow and longing for the overman. And tell me, my brother, is this your will to marriage? Holy I call such a will and such a marriage. And thus spake Zarathustra.
The Abracast, occult, history, conspiracy, and violence.
Hey, I'm John Towers. This is the Abracast. Thank you for tuning in. Every Wednesday for like this month, I think, we've been doing these live readings of Nietzsche's, I don't know, what do they call it? Opus, magnum opus, his masterpiece. It's a little tiny book. It's a little pamphlet called "Thus Spake Zarathustra." I was actually looking at how thick it is, and just how little of a dent we've put in it, and I'm like, oh my god, I might need to take I'm all Zarathustra out. I might have to take a little bit of a break. But hey, before we get rolling and started into this, I wanted to kind of let you guys know there'll be the show that posts on Sunday, next week's like main show, I guess is the way I should say it. I don't want anybody to miss it. I'm going to be spitting fire, and yeah, I'm pretty excited to record it. I'm going to record it Friday night, and I'm pretty excited for it. I don't want to give too much away. I don't want to tease it too. I don't want to put too fine of a point onto it. So I'll just say that, you know, I just came back from a little vacay, and for vacation, we went camping, and so I took I took 2 Korans out to the middle of the woods with me to do show prep. So it's going to be one of those barn burners. So put that on your little calendar. Make sure you check that out. And then, what's the American sermon that Friday we're going to post? I think it's one of my favorite American sermons. It's on American apocalypticism. It's pretty interesting. I go a pretty crazy way with it. Let's see. Patreon's coming back. We're going to do Subscribe Star and Patreon going forward. Do I have any other news? Mailing list stuff. I'm trying to get back on track with the work group, so the mailing list stuff is good. Yeah, alright, so let's go. Let's get into Zarathustra's here. Oh, tarot cards. Tarot cards are coming along marvelously. And if you're curious, you want to see some sneak peeks of the finished, well, they might not be finished. They might still be tweaking a little bit. I don't think they're going to be done until like around Christmas time. So I have plenty of room to tweak them, and I've already redone, I don't know, like 5 or 6 of them. But yeah, if you want to check out the tarot cards, I mean, you can see like grainy, like snapshots on the Instagram. But if you like want to see like a good screen capture, like good scans, native file, whatever you want to see, high quality versions of the probably finished tarot cards. There's a tarot card info dump when you sign into the mailing list. So there's the minor arcana cards have been up there in some form or another for a while, but we're starting to put the major arcana cards up, and some of them are, I mean, I don't want to toot my own horn, but some of them are fantastic. I, for one, love what I did to the Emperor card. Okay, so with all that being said, just sign it to the mailing list. This is good stuff, and I don't beat the mailing list up too bad, and that way I can always like get a hold of you guys if I need it. So, you know, hook it up with the mailing list there. So the next speech we're going to be talking about, I shouldn't say that. It's not the next speech we're going to be talking about, because we're going to be reading them all, and then we talk about them on the lessons episodes that you could find on, well, Patreon now and Subscribestar. So I don't want to just give I don't want to give the false impression that we're skipping sermon or speeches, because we're not. I mean, it would be easier for me if we did, but we're not. On free death. Many die too late, and a few die too early. This doctrine still sounds strange. Die at the right time. Die at the right time, thus teaches Zarathustra. Of course, how could those who never live at the right time die at the right time? Would that they never be born. Thus I counsel the superfluous. But even the superfluous still make a fuss about their dying, and even their hollowest nut still wants to be cracked. Every body considers dying important, but as yet death is no festival. As yet man have not learned how one hollows the most beautiful festivals. I show you the death that consummates a spur, and I promise to survivors, he that consummates his life dies his death victoriously, surrounded by those who, is that right? Surrounded by those who hope and promise. Thus should one learn to die, and there should be no festival where one dying thus does not hallow the oaths of the living. To die thus is best. Second to this, however, is to die fighting and to squander a great soul, but equally hateful to the fighter. And the victor is your grinning death, which keeps up like a thief and yet comes as the master. My death I praise to you, a free death which comes to me because I want it. And when shall I want it? He who has a goal and an heir will want death at the right time for his goal and heir. And from reverence for his goal and heir, he will hang no more dry wreaths in the sanctuary of life. Verily, I do not want to be like the rope makers. They drag out their threads and always walk backwards. Some become too old even for their truths and victories. A toothless mouth no longer has the right to every truth. And everybody who wants fame must take leave of honor, bedtimes, and practice the difficult art of leaving at the right time. One must cease letting oneself be eaten when one tastes best. That is known to those who want to be loved long. There are sour apples, to be sure, whose lot requires that they wait till the last day of autumn, and they become ripe, yellow, and wrinkled. all at once. In some, the heart grows old first. In others, the spirit, and some are old in their youths. But late youth preserves long youth. For some, life turns out badly. A poisonous worm eats its way into their heart. Let them see, too, that it is their dying turns out that much better. Some never become sweet. They rot already in the summer. It is cowardice that keeps them on their branch. All too many live, and all too long they hang on their branches. Would that a storm come to shake all this worm-eaten rot from the tree? Would that there came preachers of a quick death? I would like them as the true storms and shakers of the trees of life, but I hear only slow death preached and patience with everything earthly. Alas, do you preach patience with the earthly? It is the earthly that has too much patience with you, blasphemers. Verily, the Hebrew died too early when the preachers of the slow death honor. And for many it has become a calamity that he died too early. Yet, as he knew only the tears and the melancholy of the Hebrew, and hated the good of the just, the Hebrew, a Jesus, and longing for death overcame him, would that he had remained in the wilderness and far from the good and the just. Perhaps he would have just learned to live and to love the earth and laughter too. Believe me, my brothers, he died too early, and himself would have recanted his teachings had he reached my age. Noble enough was he to recant. But he was not yet mature. Immature is the love of the youth, and immature his hatred of the man and earth, and his mind and the wings of the spirit are still tied down and heavy. But in the man there is more of the child than the youth, and less melancholy. He knows better how to die and to live, free to die and free in death, able to say a holy no when the time for yes has passed. Thus he knows how to die and how to live. That your dying be no blasphemy against man and earth, my friends, that I ask of the honey of your soul. In your dying, your spirit and your virtue should still glow like a sunset around the earth. Else your dying has turned out badly. Thus, I want to die myself, that you, my friends, may love the earth more for my sake. And to the earth I want to be returned, that I may find the rest in her who gave birth to me. Verily, Zarathustra had a goal. He threw his ball. Now you, my friends, the heirs of that goal, and you throw my golden ball. More than anything, I like to see you, my friends, throwing the golden ball. And so I still linger a little on the earth, and forgive me for that. Thus spake Zarathustra. Well, that was kind of a downer in parts, huh? I had to take a break. All right, back to it. On the gift-giving virtue. When Zarathustra had said farewell to the town which his heart was attached, and which was named the Motley Cow. I think that this is the town where he encountered the tightrope walker, and then he went back to many who called themselves his disciples, followed him and escorted him, and thus they came to a crossroads, and Zarathustra told them that he now wanted to walk alone, for he liked to walk alone. His disciples gave him a farewell present, a staff with a golden handle, on which a serpent coiled around the sun. Zarathustra was delighted with the staff, and he leaned on it. Then he spoke to his disciples. Tell me, how did gold attain the highest value? Because it is uncommon and useless and gleaming and gentle in its splendor, and it always gives itself. Only as the image of the highest virtue did gold attain the highest value. Gold-like gleam in the eyes of the giver. Gold splendor makes peace between the moon and the sun. And uncommon is the highest virtue, and useless it is gleaming and gentle in its splendor. A gift-giving virtue is the highest virtue. Verily I have found you out, my disciples. You strive as I do for the gift-giving virtue. But what you have in common with cats and wolves, this is your thirst to become sacrifices and gifts yourself. And that is why you thirst to pile up all the riches in your soul. Insatiability of your soul strives for treasures and gems because your virtue is insatiable. In wanting to give, you force all things to and into you, that they may flow back out of your well as the gifts of your love. Verily, such a gift-giving love may approach all values as a robber, but whole and holy, I call this selfishness. There is another selfishness, an all too poor and hungry one that always wants to steal the selfish of the sick. The selfishness with the eyes of a thief. It looks at everything splendid with greed of hunger, and it sizes up those who have much to eat and always sneaks around the table of those who give. Sickness speaks out of such cravings and invisible degenerations. The thievish greed of the selfishness speaks of a diseased body. Tell me, my brother, what do we consider bad and worst of all? Is it not degeneration? And if it is degeneration, that we always infer where the gift-giving soul is lacking. Upward goes our upward goes our way from genus to over-genus. And we shudder at the degenerate sense which says, everything for me. Upward flies our sense. Thus it is a parable of our body, a parable of elevation. Parables of such elevations are the names of the virtues, and thus the body goes through history becoming and fighting. And the spirit, what is that to the body? The herald of its fight and victories, companion and echo. All names of good and evil are parables. They do not define, they merely hint. A fool is he who wants knowledge of them. Watch for every hour, my brother, in which our spirits speak in parables. There lies the origin of your virtues, and there your body is elevated and resurrected with its rapture, its delights of the spirit, so that it turns creator and esteemer and lover and benefactor of all things. And when your heart flows broad and full like a river, a blessing and a danger to those living near. There is the origin of your virtue. When you are above praise and blame, you will want to command all things. Like a lover's will, there is an origin of your virtue. When you despise the agreeable and the soft bed and the soft bed and cannot bed yourself far enough from the soft, there is an origin of your virtue. When you will with a single will, and you call this cessation of all need necessity, there is an origin of your virtue. Verily a new good and evil is she, verily a new deep murmur, and the voice of a new well. Power is she, this new virtue, a dominant thought is she, and around her wise soul a golden sun, and around it the serpent of knowledge. Here, Zarathustra fell silent for a while, and he looked lovingly at his disciples. And then he continued to speak thus, and the tone of his voice had changed. Remain faithful to the earth, my brothers, with the power of your virtue, and let your gift-giving love and your knowledge serve the meaning of the earth. And thus I beg and beseech you, do not let them fly away from earthly things and beat with their wings against eternal walls. Alas, there has always been so much virtue that has flown away. Lead back to the earth the virtue that flew away, as I do, back to the body, back to life, back to reality, that it may give the earth a meaning, a human meaning. In 100 ways thus far have spirit as well as virtue flown away and made mistakes. Alas, all this delusion, all these mistakes still dwell in our body. They have there become the body and the will. And in 100 ways thus far, spirit as well as virtue has tried and erred. Indeed, an experiment was man. Alas, much ignorance and error have become the body within us. Heyo! Not only the reason of millennia, but their madness too breaks out in us. It is dangerous to be an heir. Still we fight step by step with the giant accident, and over the whole of humanity here has ruled so far only nonsense, no sense. Let your spirit and your virtue serve the sense of the earth, my brothers, and let the value of all things be posited newly by you. For that shall you be fighters, for that shall you be creators. With knowledge of the body purifies itself. Making experiments with knowledge, it elevates itself. In the lover of knowledge, all instinct becomes holy. In the elevated, the soul becomes gay. Not like that, though. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Physicians, help yourself, thus you help your patient too. Let this be his best help, that many may behold with his eyes. The man who heals himself, there are 1,000 paths that have hidden, or that have never yet been trodden. 1,000 healths and hidden aisles of life, even now, man and man's earth are unexhausted and undiscovered. Wake and listen, you that are lonely. From the future comes winds with the secret wing beats, and good tidings are proclaimed to the delicate ear. You that are lonely today, you that are withdrawing, and you shall one day be the people out of you who have chosen yourselves. There shall grow a chosen people, and out of them the overman. Verily, the earth shall yet become the site of recovery. And even now a new fragrance surrounds it, bringing salvation and a new hope. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. When Zarathustra had said these words, he became silent. Like one who has not yet said his last word. Long he weighed his staff in his hand, and doubtfully at last he spoke thus, and the tone of his voice had changed. Now I go alone, my disciples. You too go now alone. Thus I want it. Verily, I counsel you, go away from me and resist Zarathustra. And even better, be ashamed of him. Perhaps he deceived you. The man of knowledge must not only love his enemies, but must also be able to hate his friends. One repays a teacher badly if one always remains nothing but a pupil. And why do you not want to pluck at my wreath? You revere me, but what if your reverence tumbles one day? Beware lest a statue slay you. You say you believe in Zarathustra, but what matters Zarathustra? You are my believers, but what matter all believers? You had not yet sought yourselves, but you found me. Thus do all believers. Therefore all faith amounts to so little. Now I bid you lose me and find yourselves. And only when you have denied me will I return to you. Verily, my brothers, with different eyes shall I then seek my lost ones. For a different love shall I then love you. And once again you shall become my friends and the children of a single hope. And then I will be with you a third time, that I may celebrate the great noon with you. And that is the great noon when man stands in the middle of his way between beast and overman, and celebrates his way to the evening, to the highest hope, for it is the way to a new morning. So he's directly referencing the tightrope walker again. It's very interesting. That great noon when man stands in the middle of his way between beast and overman. Then will he goes under bless himself for being one who goes over and beyond, and the sun of his knowledge will stand at a high noon for him. Dead are all gods now, we want the overman to live on that great noon. Let this be our last will. And thus spoke Zarathustra.
Learn more at abracast.com. Get bonus content and access to the private Abracast workgroup by signing up for the mailing list. Get all that plus many exclusive episodes by supporting the show at patreon.com or subscribestar.com.
Hey, check out this month's Fellowcraft episode. It's all about the lessons of Zarathustra. Check out this clip. All right, so listen to these two statements juxtaposed. On the new idol, the state has become the new idol that the masses worship. It encourages uniformity and mediocrity, pandering to the masses, and freedom can only be found outside the confines of the state. Now listen to this statement by the same organization, if not the same fucking writer, on enjoying the suffering and the passions, which was the first speech that we spoke about this evening. We learn and grow most from our moments of suffering and intense feeling, and they make us unique, and they should not be shared for fear of losing one's uniqueness, and someone who is driven by more than one intense passion will suffer inner conflict. Back to this existentialism paper. No one is allowed to be a creator and no one is allowed to be original. Think of unplatforming, demoting videos on YouTube. Think about, we've called it like the modern book burning movement. I'm sure there's another snappy word for it. Think about that. The difference is not tolerated in the state. The Daleks do not. Okay. Difference is not tolerated in the state. Difference is not tolerated by the Dalek. The state turns the people into the last human. Only where the state ends can the overman begin. This Fellowcraft episode and many more are available at subscribestar.com/abracast. The Fellowcraft tier it's only $3 a month, guys.
second seal. I heard the second living creature said, come and see. Then another horse came out, a finely red one. Its rider was given power to take peace from the earth and to make men slay each other. To him was given a large sword.
That was X-Prophet with the breakout hit of the year, Red Horse Rising. I fucking love that song, man. The beautifully talented, one of my best friends, Nelson Piles, wrote that song. It's about me. So I put the song on and I ran up. I had to take a leak and mix a new drink. I come down in time to listen to like the last hour or the last minute and some change of that song, and I just get amped up listening to it. It's like when he's doing the Bible verses of Revelations. Oh man, it's so good. I should put that up on Patreon or something, or on Subscribestar somewhere. He sent me a message. He was like, hey, I'm writing the lyrics about kicking people in the face because I'm writing a song about you. Alright. So we've moved into... So everything that we've done so far, 7 and 3/4 episodes of the Spake Zarathustra live was all the introduction and part 1. We've officially moved into part 2. So we're in Thus Spake Zarathustra part 2. In the first speech here, I think we're going to do 2 of them. We're going to do 2 of these and then we're going to cut it short. So we're actually going to cut it long, I bet. But we're going to do 2 of these and we're going to put an end to this episode. The first one is called Child with the Mirror. Then Zarathustra returned again to the mountains and to the solitude of his cave, and he withdrew from his men, waiting like a sower who had scattered his seed. But his soul grew full of impatience and desire for those whom he loved, and because he still had much to give them. For this is what is hardest, to close the open hand because one love, and to keep one sense of shame as a giver. thus months and years passed for this solitary, but his wisdom grew and caused him pain with its fullness. And one morning, however, he woke, even before the dawn, reflected long, laying in his bed. At the last spoke to his heart, and why did I so startled in my dream that I awoke? Did not a child step up to me carrying a mirror? Oh, Zarathustra, the child said to me, look at yourself in the mirror. And when I looked into the mirror, I cried out and my heart was shaken, for it was not myself I saw, but the devil's grimace, a scornful laughter. Verily, all too well do I understand the sign of admonition of my dream. My teaching is in danger. Weeds pose as wheat, and my enemies have grown powerful and have distorted my teachings till those dearest to me must be ashamed of the gifts that I gave them. I have lost my friends. The hour has come to seek my lost ones. With these words, Zarathustra leapt up, not like a frightened man seeking air, but rather as a seer and a singer who is moved by the spirit, amazed. His eagle and his, remember, he's got these pets. He's got a snake and an eagle pet. And when they look for him, the snake wraps around the eagle's neck, and they fly around looking for him. So the eagle and the snake are still hanging out with him. Amazed, his eagle and his serpent looked at him, for like dawn, a coming happiness lay reflected in his face. What has happened to me, my animals? Said Zarathustra. Have I not changed? Has not bliss come to me as a storm? My happiness is foolish, and I will say foolish things. It is still young, so be patient with it. I am wound by my happiness, and let all who suffer be my physicians. I may go down again to my friends, and to my enemies too. Zarathustra may speak again, and give and do what is dearest to those dear to him. My impatient love overflows in rivers downwards towards the sunrise and the sunset. From silent mountains and thunderstorms of suffering, my soul rushes into the valleys. Too long have I longed and looked up in the distance, and too long have I belonged to loneliness. Thus I have forgotten how to be silent. Mouth have I become through and through in the roaring of the steam from the towering cliffs, and I want to plunge my speech down into the valleys and let the rivers of my love plunge where there is no way. How could a river fail to find its way into the sea? Indeed, a lake is within me, solitary and self-sufficient, but the river of my love carries it along down the sea. New ways I go. A new speech comes to me wary. I grow like all creators of the old tongues. The spirit no longer wants to walk on worn soles. Too slowly runs all speech for me. Into your chariot I leap, storm, and even you I want to whip with my sarcasm. Like a cry and a shout of joy, I want to sweep over wide seas till I find the blessed isles where my friends are dwelling and my enemies among them. How I now love all to whom I may speak. My enemies too are part of my bliss. And when I want to mount my wildest horse, it is always my spear that helps me up best. But as the ever-ready servant of my foot, the spear that I hurl against my enemies, how grateful I am to my enemies that I may finally hurl it. The tension of my cloud was too great between the laughter of lightning bolts, and I want to throw showers of hail into the depths. Violently my chest will expand, violently will it blow its storm over the mountain, and thus find relief, and verily like a storm come my happiness and my freedom. But let my enemies believe that the evil one rages over their head. Indeed, you too will be frightened, my friend, by my wild wisdom, and perhaps you will flee from it together with my enemies. Would that I know how to lure you back with shepherd's flutes, and would that my lioness wisdom might learn how to roar tenderly. And many things have we already learned together. My wild wisdom became pregnant on lonely mountains. On rough stones she gave birth to her young. Her youngest now she runs foolishly through the harsh desert and seeks gentle turf. My old wild wisdom upon your heart's gentle turf, my friends, upon you love she would bed her most dearly beloved. And thus spoke Zarathustra. I need a break. I love that one. Woo! This one spoke to me. It's a weird name for this. So we kind of see, it seems to me like we kind of see Zarathustra, he needed a cane. His buddies got him a cane, and he was just like, I'm getting too old for this shit, maybe, and fucking went back up to his mountain. And then it seemed like he was just he was in his mountain for a few years, and he just jumped up and was like, I gotta get back down there, man. This shit is fucked up. I love that one. All right, let's do one more. God damn it. We'll do it live. I need to grab my cheaters. Oh, that's way better. Okay. Reading glasses on. Upon the blessed isles, the figs are falling from the trees, but they are good and sweet. And they fall, their red skins burst, and I am north wind to ripe figs. Thus, like figs, the teachings fall to you, my friends. Now consume their juice and their sweet meat. It is autumn about us, and the pure sky and afternoon, and behold, what fullness there is about us. And out of such overflow, it is beautiful to look out upon the distant sea. Once one said God when one looked upon distant seas, but now I have taught you to say Overman. God is conjecture, but I desire that your conjecture should not reach beyond your creative will. Could you create a God? Then do not speak to me of any gods. But you could well create the Overman, perhaps not you yourselves, my brothers, but into the fathers and the forefathers of the Overman. You could recreate yourselves and let this be your best creation. So I see a theme emerging of this, your children becoming better than you are. Maybe that's why the child held the mirror in the cave. God is conjecture, but I desire that your conjecture should be limited by what is thinkable. Could you think a God? But this is what the will to truth should mean to you. That everything be changed into what is thinkable for man. Visible for man, feebly by man. You should think through your own senses to their consequences. And what you have called your world, that shall be created only by you. Your reason, your image, your will, your love shall thus be realized, and verily for your own bliss, you lovers of knowledge. And how would you bear life without this hope, you lovers of knowledge? You could not have been born either into incomprehensible or into the irrational, but let me reveal my heart to you entirely. My friends, if there were gods, how could I endure not to be a god? And hence there are no gods. Though I drew this conclusion, now it draws me. God is a conjecture, but who could drain all the agony of this conjecture without dying? Shall his faith be taken away from the Creator, and from the eagle his soaring to eagle heights? God is a thought that makes crooked all the straight, and makes turn wherever stands. How? Should time be gone, and all that is impairment a mere lie? To think that this is dizzy whirl for human bones and a vomit for the stomach, verily, I call it turning sickness into conjecture. Thus, evil I call it, it's misanthropic. All this teaching of one of the penium, and the unmoved, and the sated, and the permanent, and all the permanent, that is only a parable, and the poets lie too much. It is a time of becoming, and the best parables should speak. Let them be a praise and a justification of impermanence. Creation, that is the great redemption from suffering and life's growing light. But that Creator may be suffering is needed, and much change indeed. There must be much bitter dying in your life, you creators. Thus, are you advocates and justifiers of all impermanence. To be a child who is newly born, the Creator must also want to be the mother who gives birth, and the pangs of the birth giver. Barely through 100 souls I've already passed on my way, through 100 cradles and birth pangs, and many a farewell have I taken. I know the heart-rending last hour, but thus my creative will, my destiny wills it, or to say it more honestly, this very destiny, my will wills. Whatever in me has feelings suffers and is in prison, but my will always comes to me as my liberator and my joy bringer. Willing liberates, and the true teaching of will and liberty, thus Zarathustra teaches it. Willing no more, and esteeming no more, and creating no more. Oh, that is great weariness, might always remain far from me. In knowledge, too, I feel only my will's joy in begetting and in becoming. And if there is an innocence in my knowledge, it is because the will to beget it in it. Away from God and gods, this will has lured me. What could one create if gods exist? But my fervent will to create impels me ever again towards man. Thus is the hammer impelled towards the stone. Oh, man, in the stone there sleeps an image of my images. Alas, that it must sleep in the hardest and the ugliest stone. Now my hammer rages cruelly against its prison. Pieces of rock rain from the stone. What is that to me? I want to perfect it, for a shadow came to me. The stillness and the lightness of all things once came to me. The beauty of the overman came to me as a shadow. Oh, my brothers, what are the gods to me now? Thus spake Zarathustra. Well, I've been John Towers, and this has been the Ambercast.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Send an email or visit us on social media to let us know what you think about this topic. And please remember to leave a 5-star rate and review.
Hey, check out this month's Fellowcraft episode. It's all about the lessons of Zarathustra. Check out this clip. All right, so listen to these two statements juxtaposed. On the new idol, the state has become the new idol that the masses worship. It encourages uniformity and mediocrity, pandering to the masses, and freedom can only be found outside the confines of the state. Now listen to this statement by the same organization, if not the same fucking writer, on enjoying the suffering and the passions, which was the first speech that we spoke about this evening. We learn and grow most from our moments of suffering and intense feeling, and they make us unique. And they should not be shared for fear of losing one's uniqueness. And someone who's driven by more than one intense passion will suffer inner conflict. Back to this existentialism paper. No one is allowed to be a creator and no one is allowed to be original. Think of unplatforming, demoting videos on YouTube. Think about, we've called it like the modern book burning movement. I'm sure there's another snappy word for it. Think about that. The difference is not tolerated in the state. The Daleks do not. Okay. Difference is not tolerated in the state. Difference is not tolerated by the Dalek. The state turns the people into the last human. Only where the state ends can the overman begin. This Fellowcraft episode and many more are available at subscribestar.com/abracast. The Fellowcraft tier it's only $3 a month, guys.